Hi everyone, feels like it's been a while since the last devlog. I've been on holiday, but had some time to add a few new things to the game, so let's get into it. For those that don't know, Lumbermill is a management game in which you construct factories to maintain and process the forest around your mill. The first thing that needed adding was the new notification system. The old system doesn't match the heads-up display redesign I created a few weeks back and has a lot of wasted space that could be put to better use. In the new design, notifications slide into the top right of the screen, with the text being color-coded to help readability at a glance. I've also added a space for an icon, which wasn't there in my original design for these. As I'd already created a mock-up for the notifications, I got straight into building the layout in Unity. With that done, I created a script for managing each notification, and the first attempt at coding them didn't entirely go to plan. Newer notifications are going to the top of the list as planned, but they're spawning in totally the wrong place and forming a list in completely the wrong area of the screen. There were some UI specific rules for positioning I'd forgotten in my initial code that when fixed all looked like this. New notifications are created, they match the width of the text within them and can be removed with a right click. They don't have color yet though, so that's next. In order to keep things uniform throughout the game, colors for tags are defined in Unity, so I created a basic blue one to test. The way this works is whenever text is put inside a mechanic tag, the notification manager will find the corresponding color for that tag and replace the original tag with rich text for the actual color. That way I don't have to remember the hex for each color whenever I create a new notification, and when I change it in one place, it changes for all notifications. Here's the way that's handled in the actual game. It all worked as expected when I tested that, so I'm pleased with the result. Next, I got to work drawing some icons to represent lumberjacks and mechanics. These will be used for notifications that specifically refer to either of these employee types. So for example, if they can't get to a storage building or machine they're meant to be working on. The icons are the same size and resolution as the icons used for build menu categories, just to make sure there's uniformity across the heads-up display. It also means I can use those icons when creating notifications about objects within those categories. Here's where I finished off with the notifications. Notifications are created and colored, icons are correct, transitions all work, and each notification can have an action assigned to it. These ones will take you to the employee the notification is about. So next up is a tree shake effect. I'm sure many of you remember the screen shake I experimented with a while back. You'll be pleased to hear that isn't making a comeback. I'll get to that in a bit. At first I used a shake function built into the tweening library I use for shaking the trees, but that looked a bit odd and wasn't quite the effect I was after, randomly swinging to either side rather than away from the lumberjack chopping the tree. I ended up writing a custom shake which allows me to control the duration, angle and number of vibrations, which was much more what I was after. I started experimenting with a particle effect for pine trees to shed needles when they're shaken. The effect couldn't be seen all that well though, and I decided it wouldn't be worth the time to implement or potential cost of performance at the moment. I then added a function to allow trees to be shaken in a radius around a central point. This will be triggered around tiles when things are constructed, just to give a bit more weight to the player's interaction. I made it possible to shake trees away from the central point, ramped up the numbers, and here's a super exaggerated example of the effect. Once I toned down those values to be a bit more reasonable, the effect looked like this. I think it feels really cool when you're building to have such an immediate effect on the surrounding trees. This will be an optional feature you can turn off in the settings, but I know I'll be playing the game with it turned on. I actually went on a socially distanced holiday to Crete between this and the last video, which was very much needed. Barely anyone there, and it was great to have a week without even touching a keyboard and mouse. But of course, these things have to come to an end. I returned to rainy England to get to work adding the ability to construct multiple conveyor belts at once. So, up until now, the game has only allowed for objects to be constructed one at a time. This is fine for things like housing, but when it comes to objects like conveyor belts, constantly clicking can get quite tedious. So I first got the game to recognize the click and drag action in the construction tool. Next came indicators to show where objects will be placed and whether the positions are valid, and then actually creating those objects. At first, it failed to position the objects correctly, instead stacking them on top of each other. I got that working, but the last thing to fix was making sure the tree shake is triggered all along the entire length of conveyors, not just at the end. Turned out I was just passing the wrong coordinate into the shake function. The final tool worked like this. Conveyor belts are lined up and drawn in a single direction depending on where you drag. I also added a tooltip to display the projected cost of the objects, which will go red and prevent construction when there isn't enough money in the bank. I've got a huge update planned for the next video, so do consider subscribing if you like this one and want to come along for development. We're so nearly at 40,000 subs, which will be an awesome milestone to hit. Similarly, if you have any ideas or suggestions, leave them in the comments as I read them all. The game is available for wishlisting on Steam, so if you haven't already, remember to wishlist and you'll get notified when the game comes out and goes on sale. The link to that is in the description. Thanks for this video go to my patrons, and in particular I'd like to thank Julian, Ethan Hart, Cameron W, Andrew, BD Smith, Sheshpesh, Gecko, Nova, Pet Patrolman, Hayden, Chris Naismith, Mr. Smith, Warner M14, Logan, Sebastian, Kleb, HPR, Ojo Marin, Joshua, Toby and Mike James. That's all for this video. If you liked it, do remember to subscribe and I shall see you next time. Cheers for watching.